In the past, I have spoken out against the poor quality of the event quests in Monster Hunter Rise. They were easy and gave very inconsequential rewards like stickers and post sets. That being said, with time, the quality of event quests began to improve. We started to receive better rewards, consisting mostly on layered armor for both the hunter and its buddies, but also including some specific items that were particularly difficult to farm, like Kimura tickets or Rampage tickets. Even better, there were some hidden secrets among the new event quests, like a particularly strong Rajang at the top of the mountain in the Akuma Street Fighter collaboration. I have also spoken about this improvement and congratulated the developers for it. Now, among the last few event quests that we have received, there is the group of Apex Emergency quests, where we have to hunt a specifically difficult version of each of the existing Apex monsters. Arzuros, Rathian, Mitsuzune, Rathalos, Diablos, and later on Sinogre, each of them provide a particularly difficult challenge where the monsters can one-shot the hunters, unless they are properly prepared. Taking into consideration that the difficulty of Monster Hunter Rise leaves a lot to be desired, these specially hard quests are very welcome, and they are a fantastic breath of fresh air. They are the same monsters, but their supercharged powers instill a newfound respect for these hunts, and a fantastic feeling of accomplishment when you finally succeed. The Apex Emergency quests are extremely fun, and I believe that they are worth talking about. Monster Hunter Rise is an incredible game that at this time I have played for over 500 hours. That said, it has some glaring weaknesses that are impossible to ignore. As a hunter who likes to be as efficient as possible, the endgame system of talisman farming is very tedious and, at times, boring. Due to the way that material melding works, the best way to farm for talismans is the Rampage quests. I am not a fan of the Rampage quests. I find them boring and not really Monster Hunter. That said, these quests offer a lot of materials and tickets that are worth a lot of melding points, and it is these types of quests that provide the highest efficiency to talisman farm. It places me in quite a predicament, one that I do not enjoy at all. The other issue with Rise is definitely its difficulty, or lack thereof. I am not a particularly good hunter. I play the greatsword, I know my weapon, and I can identify simple situations and monsters to capitalize on for damage. I can generate simple strategies and finish all hunts in the game in a decent time. That said, that's as far as my skill set goes. Yet, even with my limited skill, I have zero difficulties beating every quest in the game. Until Balstrax was released, no monster in the game gave me issues. And then, after some time, even Valstrax became a simple hunt. I lost the respect of the hunt. I lost the fear that a monster is actually dangerous. The lack of difficulty led me to a lack of accomplishment. If every monster is so easy to hunt, then no monster feels worth hunting. It took a few months, but eventually Apex Emergency Arzuros was released as an event quest. I went into this quest like I did any other. I had knowledge that this event quest was supposed to be particularly difficult, and the quest description itself leads to believe that we are dealing with a particularly powerful monster. That said, taking into consideration my experience with the game so far, I did not pay much attention to these circumstances and proceeded to the hunt as I did any other. I noticed that the hunt was mostly the same, that the monster, Apex Arzuros, had no outstanding changes. I did notice that he dealt more damage, but it wasn't until the monster landed a hit for 80% of my health, carding me in the process, that I understood just how difficult this was going to be. When a monster deals this much damage, it is impossible to ignore. In that same hunt, I got one-shotted 2 more times and failed the quest. At first, I did not think much about it. Damage is damage, but the monster is the same. I figured that all I had to do was not get hit. Easy. I go into the quest a second time and the same thing happened. 3 cards to 3 one-shots and GG, see you at the Gathering Hub. At this time, I became frustrated, but I also understood the source of my frustration. This was an Apex Arzuros. I never had to hunt this monster very much, and as a result, I had no idea what the moveset for this monster was, or which attacks were the ones that were actually dealing this much damage. What was the result? Well, I started the quest again and began to play safe. I watched the monster more. I did not overextend as much with my attacks. I was conservative in my greatsword charges, and as I learned more about the monster's moveset, I began to adjust and perfect my timings to get more damage on each opportunity. Just like that, my respect for the hunt was back. I was actually in absolute try-hard mode, learning patterns and maximizing damage opportunities. On an Apex Arceus, mind you. Normally you can bang your head against a wall and still come out on top against this monster, but not with Apex Emergency Arceus. Nah, this boy had a mission that included me in a cart back at camp. With time, I got a lot better. I was able to dodge most of its attacks and deal more damage as I understood the opportunities that the monster gave me. And you know what happened? 3 carts to 3 one-shots got wrecked and had to try again. The fact of the matter was that even when I knew more about the monster, even when I was ready for its attacks and I understood what to do, damage is damage. There were some attacks that were just too powerful, and no matter how well I was playing, the threats of these attacks were always there. It came to a point that when I was at a certain range from the monster, or when I was sitting there charging my greatsword, I started to become anxious as to when these one-shotting attacks would come. And just like that, the fear of the monster returned. Back at the gathering hub, I started to look at my build. Should I invest into more defensive skills? Should I switch my playstyle to crit draw, hit and run in order to maximize damage while maintaining flexibility and safety? Sure, let's try it. And nope, result was the same. The problem that I found is that if I prioritize safety and defense, then that means that the hunt will take a longer amount of time. If I am fighting this monster for a longer period of time, then there are more opportunities for me to get hit by the different one-shots that this monster has. I tried the quest again a few more times, trying different ideas and strategies, then the result was the same. Mind you, I was doing this solo, and I was not about to call for an SOS. This was my hunt, and I was going to be the one to beat it. A single quest, with a single change in damage output, returned my respect for the hunt, respect for the game, fear of the monster, and most importantly, it returned to me that feeling of reaching an accomplishment. Maybe I am not very good at the game, but that is not a valid reason to let the game win. After getting wrecked, bopped, murdered, owned, and obliterated a few more times by this quest, I took a break. This was not working and I had to think, what could I possibly do in order to increase my chances of victory? I could get better with practice, sure. With enough time I could improve my skills. But what was I missing? You see, the base game of Monster Hunter Rise was so easy in terms of difficulty that all I had to do was prepare my DPS greatsword build, eat at the canteen to get some health and skills, and then go from my spawn point straight to the monster and slay it. It was a simple life. Unfortunately, this simple life conditioned me to ignore a good chunk of the game. Not because I missed it, but because I did not need it. I said it before, damage is damage, and that means that the best way to deal with damage is to mitigate damage. It took me longer than I would care to admit, but eventually I remembered that Monster Hunter Rise has a mechanic that allows you to increase your health and defense, which means that I will be able to mitigate much more damage and, in turn, survive the one-shots. I had completely forgotten about the spirit birds. So now I am running around the map looking for these birds in order to increase my health and my defense. I also get to increase my attack and stamina, but those did not really bother me. I was happy with the amount of damage I was dealing and the stamina I had for movement. It was the health and defense that I was doing this for. After some time, I even noticed that I could equip different petalaces that had different levels of extra damage, health and defense. I never paid attention to these, and I saw that I had one that gave me a total of 100 extra health and about 50 extra defense. I did the math, and I could end up with a total of 250 health with just over 600 defense if I ran a full Balstrax set and used an armor skin. This changed everything. I was no longer getting one-shotted, and since I had more chances of survival, the whole hunt changed. I no longer had to play so safe, which meant that I could go for higher damage. This, in turn, made the hunts shorter, which meant that there were less opportunities for the monster to land its most powerful attacks. Everything just ran like clockwork, and I beat the quest on my first try after spending 10 minutes looking for these birds. I realized that throughout the first few hundred hours of Monster Hunter Rise, the game never forced me to actually use all of the mechanics that it offered. Until Apex Emergency Arceus appeared, I would just grab my sword, hit the monster in the head, collect my materials, and build a better sword. Now, I am actually running Spirit Bird routes and getting other endemic life to make my hunt smoother. Once you overcome the overwhelming damage of these special hunts, they turn into another normal Apex hunt. After Arceus, the other Apex monsters had their own emergency quest released: Rathian, Mitsuzuna, Rathalos, and Diablos. The strategy was the same: get the full health and defense, understand the monster, and hunt it. Once I began to use all the mechanics available in the game, I never had any other issue succeeding in any of the other Apex Emergency quests. As you see, a single quest type with a single change managed to return to me as a hunter the feelings of respect for the hunt and fear for the monster. It also forced me to use all of the mechanics the game presents by providing an actual challenge. Once the victories started coming in, the sense of accomplishment returned. The game was now completely different. It felt really good and it made me play a lot more. Apex Emergency quests, in my opinion, completely revitalized Monster Hunter Rise. They make the game more challenging, more rewarding, and, as a result, more fun. I truly hope that there are more quests like these in the future and that they bring this philosophy of difficulty into Sunbreak. It is exactly what Monster Hunter Rise needed. Besides the difficulty and the philosophical nature of the changes that these Apex Emergency quests bring to the table, we also have to talk about rewards. The cold, hard, material profit that we get after each successful Apex Emergency hunt. Honestly, the rewards are very good. Obviously, you get the materials that you carve from the monster and the materials that you get from the quest rewards and breaking parts. This includes the Apex materials specific to each particular monster you are hunting. But the best part is that you get a good amount of Rampage tickets from it too. In fact, you get enough max grade Rampage tickets for a single talisman cycle. A single hunt provides enough tickets to meld one talisman set, and you get to keep the monster materials as extra. This means that the Apex Emergency quests are enough to keep the talisman farm cycle ongoing indefinitely, and you no longer need to do Rampage quests in order to maintain peak efficiency. Granted, doing Rampage quests will still be the most efficient way to obtain materials due to the sheer amount of tickets and monster parts that they give out. That being said, Apex Emergency quests are efficient enough to keep the cycle going, and even allow you to do other quests in between. This offers a good talisman farming system that allows for a variety of quests and monsters, and, honestly, any excuse to not have to do Rampage quests is good enough for me. With all of this said, I understand that there are those hunters who are not fully satisfied with these rewards. I understand that there might be some expectations that are not met by these Apex Emergency quests. These opinions are completely valid, but I do find them a bit unfair. To some hunters, easily farmable Rampage tickets are not enough. They desire a more tangible reward. Unfortunately, there is no such reward in the form of new weapons or armor. The Apex monsters in Monster Hunter Rise do not provide these benefits. I am sure that this will be addressed in the Sunbreak expansion, but at this time, and, in my opinion, the rewards that these Apex Emergency quests give are very good, and they help the endgame of the game a lot. I understand that some hunters require a power-up after beating these types of quests, but sometimes overcoming this kind of challenge is its own reward. Of course, we also have to speak about the concept of artificial difficulty. This concept can be understood as raising the difficulty of a game by modifying statistics instead of adding or changing mechanics. The best example of artificial difficulty that exists is to grab the already existing asset in a game and simply increasing its health values and the damage it does. This automatically increases the difficulty of this asset, even if it is a superficial change. Honestly, that is exactly what happens in these Apex Emergency quests. These are the exact same Apex monsters, they just deal more damage, even to the point that they can one-shot you under certain circumstances. There is definitely an instance of artificial difficulty in this quest. That said, this matter is very subjective. In the current conditions, these quests, even if they are artificially difficult, are very good. They provide the challenge that Monster Hunter Rise needed. There is a definitive improvement in the value of this game as new event quests are released. It may not be perfect, but it sure is a lot better. At the end of the day, this topic is extremely subjective. Everybody will have their own opinion on whether they like or dislike this type of quest. You may find it useful or you may find it a waste of time. All opinions are valid, but I believe that we can reach a consensus in regards to the fact that quests like these do a lot for the endgame of Monster Hunter Rise. Having a challenge, something to strive for, is good for the health of the game. Even if there may not be rewards that offer a direct power-up to your hunter, they still provide tangible, useful rewards that benefit hunters and allows them to keep the talisman cycle running. Not only this, but the difficulty and challenge that these quests provide force hunters like myself to take advantage of all mechanics that the game has to offer. Sure, I still ignore spirit birds on most hunts, but I make sure to get all that I need when I am doing the Apex Emergency quests. The latest batch of event quests are going in the right direction, and I hope that this philosophy continues into Sunbreak. Being challenged is as important as being powerful, and both of these are needed in order to get a healthy, long-lasting endgame. That being said, this is just my opinion. I am interested in hearing yours. What is your experience with the Apex Emergency quests? Do you believe that this is what the game needs? Do not hesitate to share your point of view in the comments below. Thank you very much for your time, and please remember to use more greatswords.